"Hey, kid, wrong party," a voice cuts through the chatter. Malik freezes mid-step. Two men in hotel security uniforms stand at the gold-trimmed entrance, one smirking like he said something clever. The other gives him a slow head-to-toe glance, letting the pause twist into something ugly. A couple walking past chuckles under their breath. Somewhere behind, someone mutters, "Guess they'll let anyone in these days." Malik's grip tightens on the folded ticket in his hand. "I'm here for the fundraiser," he says, trying to keep his voice steady. The smirk widens. "Fundraiser? Sure, and I'm the mayor." The guard's tone drips mockery, and it lands heavy in the pit of Malik's stomach. A small ripple of laughter rolls through the group waiting to enter. Someone whispers too loud to be accidental. Malik hears the word Tuxedo, followed by a snicker. He swallows hard. "My name's on the guest list." The taller guard shifts his stance, folding his arms. "Relax, we're just having fun," he says, but the sarcasm sticks like burrs. It isn't fun. Not when every passing glance feels like another stone tossed his way. Not when the knot in his chest is tightening, pulling the air from his lungs. Malik takes a step forward, but the shorter guard slides sideways, blocking him with casual precision. "Patience, kid. Let's wait for the actual guests to arrive." The laughter fades into murmurs now, but every sound slices through the moment, one he already knows will not be easy to forget. There's a faint click behind him, then another. He turns his head just enough to see three people holding up their phones. One leans in for a better angle, grinning like this is street theater. Another hides her mouth with her hand, not to stifle a laugh, but to make sure her recording stays steady. Malik's pulse hammers in his ears. He's been looked at before, but not like this. Not with the hungry curiosity of strangers who know they'll walk away unscathed. Someone whispers, "I think he's being kicked out." The words pass like a current through the crowd. He shifts his weight, trying to avoid the camera lenses, but they move with him, tracking every flinch, every blink. "Relax," one of the guards says again, but it's not meant for comfort. It's for the audience, the kind of reassurance a performer gives when they know the scene is about to get interesting. Malik doesn't answer. His tongue feels like sandpaper, his throat closing in. Every pair of eyes, some laughing, some pitying, locks on him. Each second stretches longer, pressing him into a corner he can't escape. And then, just when he thinks it can't get any worse, the taller guard raises his hand. "That's enough. Step aside until the real guests get here." The taller guard's voice cuts clean, the kind that doesn't invite a response. He gestures toward a shadowed spot near the velvet rope, like he's directing traffic. Malik blinks. "My ticket is valid," he says, his tone clipped now. The guard chuckles without warmth. "Sure, but let's clear the way. Don't want to slow down the people who actually belong here." It's not the words alone. It's the casual dismissal in them, as if Malik is an obstacle to be moved, not a guest to be welcomed. A man in a navy suit walks past, brushing Malik's shoulder without apology. "Excuse me," the man says flatly, as though Malik's presence is an inconvenience he didn't expect to navigate tonight. The shorter guard leans in just enough for Malik to catch his low murmur. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Malik's jaw tightens. The crowd is still watching, still recording, still whispering. His ticket, creased now from being gripped too tight, feels like it's burning in his palm. Every instinct screams to push forward, to prove he's not a mistake in their perfect picture. But his feet won't move. His fingers tremble so violently, he wonders if the ticket might slip from his grasp. He locks his elbows, forcing his posture upright. Don't let them see you break. But his body betrays him. The shaking creeps from his hands to his shoulders, spreading with each heartbeat. His mouth is dry, his breathing uneven. He can feel the heat gathering in his face, the sting at the back of his eyes threatening to spill forward. "Everything okay here?" a voice calls from somewhere in the line. Not friendly, not concerned, just curious. The taller guard glances toward the sound, then back to Malik.
Everything's fine. He's just waiting for clearance. Clearance. The word lands like an insult. Malik's presence is a risk that needs to be reviewed before he's allowed through the door. He focuses on the ticket again. The ink blurs for a moment before he blinks it clear. This was supposed to be the night he finally felt like he belonged in a room of names he'd only seen on TV. Instead, he's standing here, on display, held in place, his body shaking in rhythm with the muffled laughter of strangers. The moment stretches so thin, it feels like the world might tear with it. A phone flashes. A soft chuckle follows. The guards keep their stance, satisfied with the invisible wall they've built between Malik and the ballroom beyond. In his mind, the night slows into snapshots. The smirk on the shorter guard's face, the weight of the ticket digging into his palm, the way the crowd's murmurs swell and break like a tide. Somewhere deep down, a different kind of heat stirs. Not from shame, but from something sharper. He hasn't moved yet, doesn't speak, because this is the exact point before everything changes, before someone steps in, before the balance shifts, before the humiliation on his shoulders becomes something the whole room can't look away from. And in that stillness, Malik understands this is the moment that will follow him far beyond tonight.
Keep your head up, Malik. Don't give this city a reason to swallow you whole. Coach's words echoed in his mind as he weaved past boarded-up storefronts and flickering streetlights. Cleveland had a way of testing you, pushing you until you either broke or clawed your way out. Every cracked sidewalk and graffiti-smeared wall whispered the same warning: this place will define you if you let it. But Malik had other plans. He wasn't just running errands. He was running toward a future no one in his block thought possible. The city's grit didn't scare him. It sharpened him. Every bus ride past empty factories fueled his hunger to prove that greatness could come from streets people tried to forget. Still, he knew that surviving here meant staying alert. One wrong step, one wrong look could change everything, and not in his favor. "Hold still, baby," his mother murmured, pushing the needle through worn black fabric. The tuxedo had come from a thrift store, but her hands turned it into something new. She worked double shifts at the diner and cleaned offices at night, yet somehow she still found the energy to sew under the dim kitchen light. Malik watched her face, lined with exhaustion, but glowing with pride. "You're going to walk in there looking like you belong," she said softly. "I do belong," Malik replied, though his voice carried both certainty and doubt. She smiled without looking up. She didn't need to hear confidence. She needed to know he believed it. For every stitch she made, she was sewing a piece of her own dream into his future. She never said it, but Malik knew. Her sacrifices weren't just for him to live better. They were for him to be seen. At school, Malik had learned to read faces before they spoke. The raised brows when he answered a question too quickly, the sideways glances when he mentioned his grades. People weren't used to seeing a young black man exceed their expectations. In stores, the security guard's eyes followed him, not the other kids. He'd once overheard a shopkeeper mutter, "Keep an eye on him," as though wearing a hoodie meant he carried trouble in his pockets. He never reacted, but each moment left a mark. His friends told him to brush it off, but Malik knew these moments stacked like bricks, building invisible walls between him and the world he wanted to enter. He wasn't angry. Anger was easy. What he felt was heavier: determination. A need to show them that brilliance, ambition, and dignity weren't exceptions in his neighborhood. They were the rule, if people cared to see it. The email came on a rainy Thursday. He'd won the citywide essay competition, first place. The prize, a ticket to the grand charity gala, the kind of event where every handshake could open a door. Malik read the email twice, not because he didn't believe it, but because it felt like the first crack in the ceiling above him.
His mother cried, pressing the invitation against her chest like it was made of gold. "You'll see the kind of people you've been writing about," she said. Malik nodded, his mind already racing. This wasn't just a fancy night out. This was proof he could step into rooms where power lived and breathe the same air without shrinking. He didn't care if they looked at him like he didn't belong. He was going, not as a guest desperate for approval, but as someone ready to claim his place at the table.
"Excuse me, can I help you?" The receptionist's tone was polite on the surface, but her eyes scanned Malik's thrift store tuxedo like it was a uniform. He had just watched her beam at a white couple, handing them name tags without a single question. "I'm here for the gala," Malik said, offering his invitation. Her smile didn't change, but something in her voice did. "Oh, you're a guest?" She tilted her head, as though the concept was puzzling. "Yes," he replied firmly, sliding the paper toward her. She glanced at it longer than necessary, then finally nodded. "Right, of course. Just through those doors." Her hesitation lingered in the air like smoke. Malik walked past her desk, feeling the eyes of nearby staff follow him. This was supposed to be the night where his words opened doors. Instead, the first one had creaked open reluctantly, as though the hinges had rusted from disuse. He reminded himself he belonged here, but the sting had already seeped in. The warmth she gave others was nowhere to be found for him. And this was only the welcome. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, but Malik felt the chill of being unseen. He stood by a table, waiting for a waiter to refill his water glass. Two passed by, trays balanced effortlessly, yet neither glanced his way. He raised his hand slightly, nothing. A group of guests nearby avoided eye contact, their conversations skipping over him like he was a shadow in the room. He wasn't asking for special treatment, just the same courtesy everyone else seemed to receive without effort. He thought about how invisibility wasn't always a superpower. Sometimes it was a quiet erasure, the kind you couldn't call out without being labeled too sensitive. But Malik didn't need confirmation. The message was clear. They'd acknowledge his presence only if they had to. And tonight, it seemed, no one felt they had to. The first time Malik noticed the security guard watching him, he brushed it off. The second time, he realized the glances weren't random. Every few minutes, the man's gaze cut across the room and landed squarely on him, eyes narrowing slightly as if ticking boxes on an invisible checklist. He shifted positions, hoping it was coincidence, but the stare followed. Guests in designer suits passed freely without a glance, yet his every movement drew attention. It was the same scrutiny he'd felt in corner stores back home, only dressed in a tuxedo and polished shoes. He could almost hear the silent question behind those eyes. What's he doing here? Not who he was, but why he was. That distinction was everything. The guard wasn't protecting the event from danger. He was watching Malik as if Malik was the danger. He took a slow breath, the guard's watchful gaze still burning into his back. His mother's voice echoed, "Walk in like you've already earned it, because you have." It wasn't just advice, it was armor. She'd spent years preparing him for moments like this when dignity would be tested in ways that left no fingerprints. Malik straightened his posture, gripping the edges of his confidence like it was something tangible. He didn't need to shout about his worth. He just had to stand in it, no matter how many eyes tried to shrink him. But deep down, the unease was already settling. As the speeches began, Malik could still feel security's presence, circling, lingering, measuring. It wasn't a random patrol, it was an orbit. They were waiting, watching for a crack, a misstep, anything they could use to justify their suspicion. Each time he caught the guard's eye, the man looked away slowly, like a cat pretending not to stalk its prey. Malik knew this wasn't over. The night was only just beginning, and already the tension felt like static in the air, building towards something he couldn't yet see. He just prayed he'd be ready,
when the storm finally broke.
"Hold it right there." The voice was sharp, cutting through the hum of the gala. Malik stopped mid-step, an arm blocking his path like a barrier that had been waiting for him all night. "You can't go in there," the guard said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Malik blinked, glancing toward the ballroom doors. I'm already registered. My name's on the list." The guard's eyes narrowed, scanning him from head to toe. "Are you sure about that?" "I wouldn't be here otherwise," Malik replied, his voice steady but edged with disbelief. Behind them, people flowed in effortlessly, smiling, laughing, flashing invites that barely got a glance. Malik's invitation was still folded in his hand, but the guard didn't seem interested in looking at it. "You'll need to wait here until we verify," the guard said, not moving his arm. Malik could feel heat rising in his chest. "Verify what? I've got my ticket." "Sir," the guard interrupted, his voice flattening the word into something closer to boy, "I said wait." Conversations around them began to fade as nearby guests noticed the standoff. Malik had been warned about this kind of moment, a confrontation so public it turned you into a spectacle. And here it was, pressing in on him, daring him to push back. A second guard walked over, glanced Malik up and down, then burst into laughter. "Oh man," he said, slapping the first guard's shoulder. "Look at this, straight out of some cheap knockoff movie premiere." The words landed like stones. Malik's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the laughter grew louder, drawing the attention of guests walking past. A few paused to see what was so funny. "Tell me," the second guard continued, still chuckling, "are you here to serve drinks or sign autographs?" Snickers rippled through the small crowd. Malik felt his pulse thudding in his ears. "I'm here as a guest," he said slowly, trying to keep his voice even. "Oh, a guest," the guard repeated, dragging the word out like it was a punchline. "Sure you are." Someone nearby murmured, "Unbelievable," but it didn't sound like they were defending him. Every laugh, every sideways glance, every whispered comment sliced a little deeper. Malik had always believed that dignity meant holding your ground, but tonight it felt like the ground itself was tilting against him. By now the crowd had grown. Some stood with arms crossed, watching like it was free entertainment. Others had their phones angled just enough to record without looking obvious. Malik caught the sight of the red recording light on one screen. Whispers darted through the group. "Who is he? I don't know. Probably snuck in." Each word tightened the knot in Malik's chest. He thought of his essay, the reason he'd been invited, the late nights drafting every sentence, the hope that maybe his story could inspire someone. None of that mattered here. A man in a tailored navy suit walked past, clearly a manager by the way staff greeted him. Malik caught his eye. "Sir, can you help me? They're saying—" The manager's smile remained fixed as he glanced toward the guards. "Everything all right here?" "Yes, sir," the first guard said smoothly. "Just making sure the event stays secure." The manager nodded, patted the guard's arm, and turned to greet another guest without acknowledging Malik again. That was the answer. No raised voice, no confrontation, just a quiet, polite dismissal that told Malik his presence wasn't worth defending. "I'm here because I won the city essay contest," Malik tried again, his words tumbling out faster now. "They sent me a personal invitation." The tremor in his voice betrayed him. He could see it in their expressions. They'd already decided he was lying. "Essay contest? Cute." Malik's chest ached, not from anger, but from the hollow certainty that nothing he said would change the outcome. "Let's go," the first guard said, stepping forward. Malik's stomach dropped. The humiliation was complete. A tidal wave of every injustice he'd swallowed before, now crashing all at once. And as they moved to escort him away, he knew this wasn't just about tonight. This was about everything.
"Is that LeBron James?" someone whispered. The hum of the lobby fractured as heads turned in unison. Conversations faltered. Even the guards who'd been so focused on Malik shifted uneasily. The man himself strode forward, broad shoulders, calm authority, a presence that didn't need to demand attention because it commanded it naturally. Guests stepped aside like water parting around a stone, their eyes fixed on him. Malik froze. It was surreal. Seeing a figure he'd only admired on screens, now cutting through the tension like sunlight breaking through clouds. The security guards glanced at each other, their smirks evaporating into tight-lipped uncertainty. Malik's heart pounded, not because LeBron was there, but because for the first time all night, the power in the room had shifted. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some laced with awe, others with nervous curiosity. Malik could almost hear the unspoken question hanging in the air. What's going to happen now? And in that moment, he realized this wasn't just about him anymore. Every set of eyes was watching, waiting, sensing the shift. The tension wasn't gone. It had simply taken a new shape. The murmurs grew louder when LeBron stepped close enough for the comparison to be undeniable. His cream tuxedo, perfectly tailored, crisp under the lights, was identical to Malik's. Same cut, same sheen, the same understated elegance that had earned Malik nothing but ridicule just minutes earlier. The guards' laughter died so fast it was almost audible. Their eyes darted between the two men, trying to mask the realization clawing at their composure. Around them, the crowd's reaction shifted from smug amusement to awkward silence. Phones tilted upward, guests exchanged glances they couldn't quite disguise. LeBron caught Malik's gaze and gave the smallest of nods, not a greeting, but an acknowledgement, a silent, "I see you." Malik's chest loosened, though the humiliation still burned under his skin. He could feel the irony hanging heavy in the air. When it was on him, the tux had been too flashy for his kind. But on a world-famous athlete, suddenly no one dared to question it. That double standard wasn't just visible, it was now standing in the middle of the lobby, wearing matching suits, and it was about to be called out in a way no one could ignore. LeBron's brows knitted as he glanced from Malik to the security guards. Why's he being held up? His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room with a weight that made people straighten up. The taller guard cleared his throat. "Just making sure he belongs here, sir." LeBron's eyes narrowed. "Belongs here?" He tilted his head toward Malik. "Looks like he's dressed better than half the people in this lobby." Murmurs rose again, but this time they carried a different tone. Uneasy, questioning. Malik's pulse raced. He'd spent the last hour being diminished by strangers, but now the attention had shifted to the men who had made him feel small. And as LeBron waited for an answer, Malik knew this wasn't about to end in excuses. LeBron stepped closer, his towering frame casting a shadow over the tension. "What happened?" he asked quietly, his tone edged with controlled steel. Malik swallowed hard. "They stopped me, asked if I belonged, laughed, said I looked like a knockoff." LeBron's jaw flexed. He didn't glance at the guards. He kept his eyes locked on Malik as if absorbing every word. "That's all?" "They kept me here even when I showed my ticket and ID," Malik murmured. "They didn't believe it was real." A flash of anger crossed LeBron's face before it settled into something colder, more deliberate. "All right then," he said finally, stepping back. "Then we're going to address this properly." LeBron turned, his voice ringing out with a clarity that silenced the crowd. "So it was funny when he wore this tux, but fine when I put it on?" He gestured toward Malik. No one moved. The guards shifted uncomfortably, but their silence only made the question hit harder. Is this the standard here? People judged on skin before credentials? That's how you welcome your guests? The murmurs turned into a low hum, spreading through the lobby like a current. Someone whispered, "He's calling them out. Right here." Malik felt every word like a stone skipping across water, rippling, reaching further than the moment itself. Phones were up now, catching every angle. The security guards avoided the cameras, but their stiffness was obvious. No one dared to interrupt. Even the clink of glasses from the bar had gone silent. LeBron's presence filled the space, but it was his defense of Malik that rooted the room in stillness. Malik could feel hundreds of eyes shifting, some in discomfort, others in dawning realization. It was no longer a private humiliation. It was public reckoning. "Let's go," LeBron said, placing a hand on Malik's shoulder. Side by side, they moved past the guards without another glance. The doors to the ballroom opened,
and together they stepped through. Two men, in matching tuxedos, carrying the weight of the moment with every deliberate stride.
"Gentlemen, meet Malik," LeBron announced, his voice carrying an authority that made heads turn. The earlier whispers of doubt had vanished, replaced with warm handshakes and genuine nods of respect. Business leaders leaned in to ask Malik about his work. Athletes clapped him on the back like an equal. For the first time that night, Malik's shoulders relaxed, not because he was beside a celebrity, but because he was finally seen for who he was. One CEO smiled. "I hear you've got vision, young man. We should talk." Malik returned the smile, knowing the room now judged him not by his skin, but by the presence he carried. It wasn't the tuxedo making the difference. It was dignity. By morning, Malik's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Clips of the lobby incident had spread across Instagram, TikTok, and news feeds worldwide. Headlines called it a raw example of racial discrimination in luxury spaces. People debated, argued, and rallied in the comments, some sharing similar experiences, others shocked this could happen in 2025. Malik scrolled through the messages, feeling the weight of every word. One read, "You didn't just stand your ground, you stood for all of us." The incident was no longer just his story, it had become a mirror for society, reflecting truths many tried to ignore. By noon, the hotel released a carefully worded public apology. They announced the immediate suspension of the guards and promised a full review of staff training. But the public wasn't satisfied. Hashtags demanding justice kept trending, pressuring the management to act beyond hollow words. Behind the scenes, sponsors threatened to pull events from the venue unless change was proven. Malik didn't celebrate the suspension. He understood the real victory wasn't punishment, it was forcing a system to confront the prejudice it had hidden behind polite smiles. Days later, Malik opened his inbox to find scholarship offers from universities he had only dreamed about. Each letter mentioned his grace under pressure, his unwillingness to shrink in the face of humiliation. For once, opportunity wasn't something he had to chase, it was finding him. Standing at the podium during a youth leadership event, Malik looked over at the crowd. He adjusted the microphone and spoke with steady conviction. "It's not the suit that makes the man, it's the respect you give him." The applause that followed wasn't for his attire, it was for the truth. "So tell me," Malik's voice echoed with a quiet challenge, "if you had been standing there, watching it unfold, what would you have done?" He let the silence linger, forcing every listener to picture themselves in that moment. "I know I'm not the only one. Maybe someone here's been misjudged before they even spoke. Share it. Let's make the comment section more than words. Let's make it a truth people can't ignore." "This doesn't end with me," Malik said firmly. "Like, subscribe, keep talking about it. Every view, every share, every conversation, it's how we turn one night's injustice into a movement that refuses to fade."